This is a hybrid meeting of the City Council. Members of the public can view this meeting live on Channel 8, the city's website and YouTube. Live Spanish translation services are being provided for tonight's council meeting by telephone. Please dial 720-386-9023 and use code 104091 *.
Se ofrecen servicios de interpretación en español para esta reunión del Consejo Municipal por teléfono. Marque el número 720-386-9023 y utilice el código 104091#.
City Clerk is the host of the Zoom meeting. Speakers will be able to unmute themselves when recognized. This time I will call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Huseman.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Alan Thomas.
Present.
Councilmember Madera. Councilmember Chacon.
Present.
Councilmember Noble.
Present.
Councilmember Hurst. Present. Councilmember Kim. Here. Councilmember Ford. Here. Councilmember Douglas.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. This time I'm looking for a motion second to excuse the member not present. Mayor Pro Tem.
So moved.
Councilmember Hurst.
Second.
I have a motion second to excuse the member not present. Is there any discussion? Seeing no request for discussion, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0, one excused absence. This time, I'm going to invite everybody present and remote to join us in a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to begin by remembering that it was 22 years ago today that thousands of Americans' lives were lost. The horrible events of September 11th, 2001. I also like to remember all the service members and the civilians who were engaged in combat and lost their lives or whose lives were forever altered, as well as their family members from those combats. Please, whenever you're doing your moment of silence, take a moment to remember and reflect upon that sacrifice. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All public will occur now except for public hearings. Persons registered to speak on the multiple items will be allowed to speak multiple times. Per council policy, public comment is the time on our agenda for the public to address council on business and affairs of the city. City Council is not able to hear any comments at this time on land use matters that are before or may come before council. Please reserve your comments for the appropriate public hearing. As a reminder, we take your comments seriously, but do not generally respond to comments until later in the evening during administrative business. Council members may ask questions of speakers if desired. Per council policies CP2 and CP20, all speakers are encouraged to state their points briefly. Repetitious remarks shall be avoided, and apparently I reserve the right to terminate redundant or prolonged comments. Tonight we don't have any virtual speakers, so we're going to jump right into our in-person speakers. We are going to start with Crystal Armendariz. Apologize if I mispronounce that.
Okay, I have to remember how to do this. Oh, it's on, okay. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Many of you know me, last name Elliott. Glad to be here this evening on behalf of CDOT. I am the local government liaison. I cover regions 1, 2, and 3, and wanted to provide some information on a public meeting that we'll be hosting on October 10th at Eagle Point Recreation Center. Information will be available, but until then, I would like to introduce my counterpart here, David Marinich. He's the project manager for the I-270 project.
Hello, my name is David Marinich. I'm the project manager for the 270 project, and really excited to announce this open house that we're going to be having on October 10th at Eagle Point Rec Center. The 270 project is starting an environmental study. It's called an environmental impact statement, an EIS. We're hoping to be done with that by January of 2025. And we really want to hear from the community so that we can understand the impacts that the potential alternatives that we're evaluating in this study may have on the community. And as soon as we are complete with our environmental impact study in 2025, we are hoping to begin construction of the 270 corridor, hopefully early 2025. So really what it is we just want to hear from everybody in the community and get the word out that we are going to be soliciting input from the community.
And so we brought some, we brought some flyers in both English and Spanish that we can give to city staff. We'd like to also be able to share some with you and your networks as you're out in the community. But also, too, we will be doing extensive outreach. We've actually already started. We started off with the Adams County Fair. We've done a few town hall events. And then, obviously, most recently, well, I say obviously, but most recently, looking at airing this on the, hopefully, Channel 8. We're working on being able to air this information on a regular basis. But initially, this information is for the public meeting. We would encourage you to share this with your networks. I do have my business cards here. I realize most of you know who I am, but you don't know what I'm doing now. So want to share this and give this to city staff to pass out. Yeah, anything?
One last thing I wanted to say, we have established needs for the corridor that we'd like the community to look at. Those needs are transit on the corridor, bicycle and pedestrian connectivity, travel time reliability, freight mobility, and improving the safety of the corridor. And those are things that will be open to the public during this meeting to discuss.
Perfect timing, okay. So that's it.
Thank you all for being here this evening. Next up will be Troy Younger.
Hello, everyone. This morning, you probably got a number of PDFs from me regarding the ARPA survey and my personal opinion of it and the opinion that I got from people while sitting around a table at various locations, just kind of talking this thing out. I did print this out for you if y'all would like to have one. Excuse me. Considering the time is short, although the clock's not moving, I'm just going to pick one, and we're going to start with that. So I'm going to start with the Resource Center. That was a good beat. Thank you. I'm going to start with the Resource Center. And the way the survey is worded, a Resource Center providing voluntary support services to access the needs of residents, especially those experiencing chronic homelessness. There's a lot of concerns about this. Does Commerce City regard those experiencing chronic homelessness as residents? It's been my experience dealing, and when I'm talking about the homeless, I'm kind of talking about a very specific, but a majority of those experiencing homeless right now. Those that have chosen to live a kind of home-free lifestyle. These are people who don't need resources. These are people who know where resources are. They know where to get them. They know what's available. They know when it's available. They are not part of a community. And I think we make a mistake when we lump them all together with people who really do need these resources and these services. Let's see, we're also wondering, oh yes, will those living in Commerce City with jobs and a home, but are living at or below the poverty level, will they have access to resource centers? I think it would be a good thing to kind of nip homelessness in the bud at the beginning and to help out struggling working poor families. And will medical and dental care be made for free also? That was something that was mentioned in that survey, that portion of the survey. This is something that came up that kind of threw me because I don't remember this being in the survey when I took it. The center would be located south of 88th Avenue within a quarter mile of public transportation and in close proximity to bridge housing. I don't remember that kind of specificity in the survey itself. does that apply only to the resource center, or is that going to apply to everything? Because if it applies to everything, then some of the things being asked about, or some of these proposals, well, all of these proposals are going to hit wards 1 and wards 2 the hardest. And as bad as it sounds, I'm not sure if the opinions of those in wards 3 and 4 should be taken the same kind of, or considered the same kind of weight. And honestly, if, for those of you representing wards 1 and 2, we've got businesses and we've got people in the community that would love to ask you questions, see what kind of resources, how are we going to kind of protect that part of the city. Just a couple of seconds, well, just 10 seconds left. There were 2 things kind of added in at the last. Transportation, this one made me laugh a little bit. The ARPA funds could be used to provide increased transportation services for residents. Could be used is kind of like saying, if you're a good kid, we'll put a cherry on your banana split. That, that's almost like saying, maybe if we've got leftover funds, we'll do this. But it almost sounds like clickbait to get people to kind of sway in favor of these ARPA funds. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next up will be Jackie Valdez.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. Jackie Valdez, residing at 6796 Albion Street. I have several topics that I want to talk about. One of them is I am fed up of paying taxes and nothing getting done in this side of Commerce City. I'm tired of the weeds. I'm tired of looking like we're homeless. I'm tired of no help. Recently, I've asked for help, and that was a joke. Never even heard from anybody. Not one person. I'm tired of the large vehicles in the area. I'm tired of reaching out to the police department, and the police department keeps telling me, well, we're gonna be there when we can, we're shorthanded. I am fed up with all of it. You as our councilman, as our mayor, as our city manager, you all are kind of responsible to make sure that this stuff gets taken care of, and you all are not doing your job. Sorry, but you're not. We have dealt with the little motorbikes, we have dealt with the little go-karts, we have dealt with the large trucks, and I'm fed up with them coming down at midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, of all hours of the day. Well, the kids are going to school now. It is your responsibility. The weeds, I was coming over here on the park, the weeds look horrifying, but yet we're paying taxes for that stuff to get done. And it is your responsibility to start stepping up and making sure that this stuff gets done. We as residents are constantly being harassed to make sure that it gets done. Now, I had to get out there myself, and I've asked for help, and you know I've asked for help. Not one person came to help me. I had to get out there and pull those weeds, heavy, long, hard weeds, out of my backyard. It is your responsibility as the council. That's what we pay you for. And we're not getting no help. We're not getting no results. And I'm tired of looking like the slums. This has gone on for too long. Public Works, I'm glad they're here so that they can hear what I have to say about this, because they're part of Colorado Boulevard and Brighton Boulevard, and none of the weeds are getting done. I'm tired of the refinery. I'm tired of the recycle and them putting out the toxics, and nothing's getting done with that matter either. You guys you're our connection. This is what you guys are supposed to be taking care of. This is what you're supposed to be handling. And every time we have a council meeting, I'm here begging for help and not getting 1 ounce of it. Well, we'll help you. But then when it comes down to it, there's no help, none whatsoever. Homeless today literally stood on the corner of 62nd there and 6 and 85, where it turns into Vasquez, and literally harassed the lady because she wouldn't give him money. He spit at her. He took his paper and bit his paper and spit it at her. He made fun of her. He cussed at her. Then when the light turned, he went over and got a broken shovel, the bottom part of a broken shovel, picked it up, walked across the street, picked up the handle part that had a big old jagged edge, and was jagging it into the ground, and then taking the shovel and doing this. I don't sleep anymore. If it's not the dang trucks coming through, it's the homeless. Constantly looking in our backyards. People screaming of all hours of the night. The little motorbikes running of all hours of the night. So you, as our council, it's time for you guys to step up. Step up and get this taken care of and do something about it. You have a responsibility, as well as the city manager, as well as the police department or anybody else for that matter. That's what we pay you for, is for your help, and we're not getting it. So how much more do I got to do? Do I got to get over there and beg on my hands and knees for the help that I've asked for what our community has asked for? The North, all I hear about is what the North needs. What about here? We started Commerce City. I've got flooding out in front of my house because of the city and because of the water board, because they've came out and they've done their little jobs and didn't do it correctly. And so all the rain and all the snow and everything else comes and floods me out. We've asked for help for that too. We ain't got the help on that neither. So I want to know, as council, for each and every one of you, what are you going to do to step up for us now? Because I don't see anybody but one particular person that even cares to bother to ask, hey, can I help you? But yeah, we're having to pay our taxes so that you can give our money out to million-dollar industries to help them. And what about us poor little people? Nothing is getting done. And in our area, there's a lot of elderly people that need the help, that can't get out and do it. A lot of disability people. And no one is there to step up, none of you. So I want to know, tonight, what are you going to do to help us now? Public Works needs to know what their mess is. They need to get their mess cleaned up. I'm tired of looking on both sides of Brighton Boulevard and Colorado Boulevard looking like the slums. The homeless, it's so horrifying, it's unbelievable. And when a person is not sleeping at night because there's no control over the large trucks or the homeless or the toxification that we're getting from Suncor and Recycle, so what are you going to do for us? You're our mayor. You're our council. What are you going to do to help us? Because every time there's a council meeting, I come and ask. And I'm tired of asking and nothing getting done. So you, as our mayor, I'm asking you that, and the rest of you. What are you going to do to help us? I would like an answer from each and every one of you. Because since I've lived there 55 years in my residency, and I've not gotten 1 ounce help, and neither did my parents. They died with no help. Last winter, I begged for help, and nothing. I literally had to go out there and take the shovel and try to clean the debris that was floating down the street because it lays right in front of my house, and try to shovel it up to try to get it in the trash can so the water would go through because it was flooding so bad. And I keep hearing saying, oh, everything's going to be revamped. Everything's going to be done. Well, I've been hearing that for 55 years, and nothing's gotten done. Nothing whatsoever. And again, I'm here and I hear nothing from any of you. You as the mayor, you're number one.
You're right,
He's
and you know
number
what?
two.
The city manager and I knocked on your door, and nobody
You know
answered
what?
the door.
You did
and
knock
then-
on my door.
Yes, we did.
No, you did not knock
Yes.
on my door because my gates are locked.
We knocked on your door.
No, you did not. I'm sorry. I live at 6796 Albion Street. You did not knock on my door because my gates are locked.
We knocked.
Every single one of my gates are locked. So you give me a date, you give me a time, and you come out and we go through our area again.
I would love to. Please set it up with Miss Peters back there can set up a time whenever city manager and I can come out there and do it.
Yeah, because,
But he and
sir,
I did.
my
We
gates
walked
are
up and
locked at
down the
all
street.
hour-
Councilmember Madera saw us walk up and down the
Well,
street. We went over and
Councilman-
spoke with our law enforcement officer who was out there ensuring that truck traffic was not out there. So you can sit there and you can continue to make accusations that nobody is trying. I have a log of our police department who has parked an
Yeah.
officer out there to
Yeah.
make sure that those trucks are not going up and down the street. And
Occasionally-
so rather than be appreciative of the fact that effort is being made, you come in here week in and week out and you make these accusations and you want to sit up here and chastise the people who have volunteered their time to sit on this dais to try to solve these issues. I'm sorry it's not being done as quickly as you think it
Wait a
needs to
minute.
be.
The
I'm
police
sorry it is
department-
not being done as quickly as you think it needs to be.
As
But I
far as
will
the
not
police-
let you continue to stand at that podium and chastise the people who have skin in the game, who have sat up here and who have tried to do this.
Well, as far
If
as
you
the
would
police
like
department is
solutions, if you would
concerned-
like solutions, then work with the individuals who are trying to. Work with the police department
Oh,
who
I
has
have.
sent you a log of all
I
the
not?
tickets and warnings that they have sent out. They sent you that log. I have the email right here that they
Yeah,
have done that.
I'm sure you
So,
do.
exactly. So they are out there doing what they can to rectify the situation. Unfortunately, when we have shootings and robberies and armed robberies and people taking toy guns to schools and everything, that kind of trumps whether or not a truck is driving down another street.
Well,
That's
but
the way it
you
goes.
know,
Thank
the
you, ma'am.
thing
Your
is-
time is up. Thank you and have a good evening.
And again,
Thank
but when
you.
you came to my property
Thank you.
was
Your
locked.
time is up. Good night. Next up is going to be Chris Fiddler. Evening.
We'll all take a deep breath. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of 27J Schools. I want to thank those of you that were in attendance today at our ribbon cutting for the CT Center at Prairie View High School. Thank you so much for coming out. And I also want to thank those that were in attendance at our fifth Tuesday linkage meeting back on August 29th. We have a long history of partnership with Commerce City, and I come to you this evening with that spirit. We have provided buildings in Commerce City, and I'll go quickly because I've got 3 minutes. But the list of schools in Commerce City that serve Commerce City students are Timmick, Second Creek, Turnberry, Reunion Elementary, Stewart Middle School, Prairie View Middle, Prairie View High, Bell Creek, and Landmark Charter Schools with Capstone Academy on the horizon, and Middle School 6 in the distant future. But I'm here tonight to talk about high school number 4. So at our linkage meeting on the 29th, the question was asked and answered on when that building was going to open. The date that was given was fall of 26 or fall of 27. Subsequently, a member of council had a meeting with one of my senior staff members, and I wasn't privy to that conversation, but what I can tell you is we still fully plan to deliver that school as quickly as we possibly can. Here is the current project task. We got this from Ben Dahlman today, and I've also had a couple conversations with City Manager Rogers on what our shared interests are. On February 10th of 2023, the district hired an architect to do site plan design and conceptual site planning. We don't yet know where that school is going to go on that 100-plus acre site that's been dedicated. The deed to the entire dedicated site for the unsubdivided school and park site was received and accepted by Commerce City on April 14th, 2023. The first joint planning meeting with Commerce City and School District 27J staff occurred on April 14th, 2023. The district hired a hired survey services contractor, executed that contract on July 2nd. We've hired a traffic study consultant. That was done on July 24th. And as of August 22nd, Jason, I chased that, the Commerce City license to enter the real estate was signed so that district staff can get on that property and start taking a look around to see where we might land. Double checked with City Manager Rogers today to make sure that I understand correctly that we have a joint interest in taking a long look at that property on where we're going to place the school site. Currently, the original plan, as I understand it, would place the school. It would be bordered on the north and the east by subdivisions. We think there's a better way to use that space. We have 48 acres that are dedicated for a school site. The last high school we built was Riverdale Ridge, and it's 60-plus acres. The city has, I believe, 38 acres for a park site. we think we can use those two sites and better serve the citizens of Commerce City, both as a high school and as a city. And I will stop there in the event that there are questions. But again, we come as partners, and I want to say I really believe strongly that public business occurs in public. That's here. Respectfully, not on social media. Any questions I can answer?
Does anybody on council have any questions for Dr. Fiddler? Councilmember Noble.
Thank you, Dr. Fiddler. I am so glad that you're here tonight. There was a question about whether you were coming, you weren't coming, and I'm really happy you're here. So just to confirm, it is opening in the 26 or 27, is that what you said?
It is. So here's what I believe to be true. It's a 3-year process. We need a year of design to design the building, to prepare to build it, and then high schools are a 2-year process. But until we know exactly where it's gonna go and we come to some consensus and that's decided by the city, we don't know where we're gonna end up. So I will say, 3 years from the time that it's decided on where that school site is actually gonna be, and the district is willing to move forward at risk, because the next steps, as I understand it, and City Manager Rogers can correct me, we need to decide where it goes. We need to survey those sites. We need to subdivide, and then the school site needs to be dedicated to the school district. That is finally your property. Finally, congratulations. That was a long process. So it's finally in the city's hands, so we can start doing things together as partners to find out the best place to place that building.
Okay, well, I know the residents in Ward 4 and in North Commerce City couldn't be more happy to know that I could be wrong, that's for sure. And I couldn't be happier to know that I'm wrong also. This was a social media post that I posted after asking your operations manager to meet with me following the board meeting on Tuesday night, because there were some items that I was confused about. There were some things I didn't even include in the post. But unfortunately, a lot of residents come to me about the schools because they want more information. So I will be more than happy to have a representative from the school answer their questions in the future. But I have a couple of other questions. First of all, what is the percentage of capacity at a school that is allowable or acceptable? So let's say if you get to 100%, you say stop, or can the capacity go higher than that amount? I asked that question because there were parents who said that there are trailers at Prairie View, and that would indicate that Prairie View is at overcapacity. So what is the allowable overcapacity percentage?
There is no allowable percentage. We are required by law to serve students that come to our doors and enroll in their home school. So we have many times operated over 100% capacity. And again, I wasn't part of the meeting with you and Terry Lucero, but here's what I believe may have been said. We just opened 3 new CTE centers that will add 300 to 325 new seats per high school. What I believe could have been said was, it may be a while before we actually need that capacity to open the 4th high school. I know, others know, the community's not gonna wait. They're not gonna wait. Every day, literally every day, every month, every year that we wait, the cost of that building is gonna continue to go up. The sooner that we can land on a spot to build it, design it, and then construct it, the better. But to your point, we have a wonderful relationship with our charter schools. Charter schools have the ability to create a wait list. When they hit capacity, they're able to turn students away. We do not have that ability. We have to serve our students. And again, I've read a long list of the schools we built in Commerce City to meet that need. We intend to continue to meet the demand. We have delivered phase 2 of South Lawn. That was out of the 2021 bond. Remember, we built phase 1 out of 2015 bond money. Planned that really well. As Mayor Huseman pointed out, the groundbreaking, we know the brains in the organization are Mr. Lucero. I don't dispute that for a minute. He's delivered many, many buildings for us. We've delivered South Lawn. We delivered Discovery K-8 over in Thornton. Those were the 2 elementary schools that we had in the 2021 bond. In addition, we had 3 CT centers. Those are now open. We cut the ribbons on those. And we have 2 middle schools and a 4th comprehensive high school to deliver. Back to your question, we often run over 100% if we need to. And then I think part of what Terry may have discussed with you is how we fund those buildings once we open them. We're blessed to be growing in a way that others are not. So if you watch the news, you know that other school districts in the Denver metro area are closing schools. That's horrible. I would much rather be building schools than notifying the neighbor to our west that we're closing 16 elementary schools. But I will tell you, financially, that was the right decision to make. You can't operate 16 elementary schools at 200 kids. That's well below capacity. That's not a great look.
And since STED is at a junior level right now, they still have senior
They will
for
add-
next year.
Correct. They will add a senior class to.
Which will pick up some excess too, I understand from my conversation with your operations director. And also then the other question is, what percentage, I think you mentioned this at the school board meeting, what percentage of students at Prairie View reside in Commerce City?
Between 65 and 70%. Councilwoman, I'd have to get you a specific number, but I know that it's greater than 2/3 of the students at Prairie View have a Commerce City address.
So you're in a very difficult position then because you have to balance where students go. And it's possible that the 65 to 70% of the students at Prairie View who are Commerce City residents might choose to go to a brand-new school, a new high school on 96th or Reunion Parkway, wherever it's located. How do you handle that?
My hope would be that they would, and we would draw boundaries that would encourage that. We opened Riverdale Ridge in the fall of 2018. That relieved crowding from both Brighton High School and Prairie View High School, but we'll redraw the high school boundaries. We'll do that as a part of opening high school number 4.
And how do you backfill the students who depart Prairie View then?
Well, we don't in the short term, but our long-term growth plan has us at 50,000 students. That will far exceed probably all of us in here tonight. We're at 23,000 at the moment, but our long-term plan, when you consider the growth in Commerce City, City of Brighton, and Thornton, our long-term projections for 2040 are 50,000 kids.
Yeah. And we know that the construction bond is paid for because of the vote that the residents took. There was a question as to what happens to the construction bond money in the interim before it goes into use as construction. I didn't make that part of my post, but it was a question that residents asked.
Sure. So part of the bond money, we haven't even sold the bonds yet, right? So we'll go out and do another sale of the bonds. We were authorized to sell $550 million worth of bonds. I believe the first tranche was right at $300 million, and we're working our way through that. And there are tax implications around arbitrage. You've got to spend that within 5 years, the time that you issue the bonds and receive the money. So we'll time that out. And again, I mean this sincerely, Terry Lucero's built a ton of buildings for us. He and the finance department will time that in such a way that we deliver on time and don't find ourselves on the back end having arbitrage issues around the use of the bond money.
Great, and I appreciate Terry Lucero. I had a lovely coffee with him. And the final question then, you mentioned it earlier, which is how you fund the interior of a school, the operations itself, the teachers, the desks, all of that stuff. How is that funded?
So when we open a new building, all of the FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment are a part of that bond. The way that we fund the staff for that generally is tied to the School Finance Act. So we get about $10,000 per student. And what'll happen, honestly, is when we open that high school number 4, we'll pull teachers out of other high schools that will go to that new building and serve those kids. It'll reduce the number of kids in those buildings, which will reduce the need for that many staff members. You see that model in South Lawn, you see that model in Discovery, you see that model in Reunion when we opened. You know, it just redistributes how we're serving kids. The challenge is you want to be efficient in how you open. We don't want to open a new high school with 200 kids. That's horribly financially inefficient, but I don't think that'll be the case. But I think that was part of the conversation that you had. Again, I wasn't privy to that.
Thank you very much. Well, as I said, I couldn't be happier that the high school is going to open in 26 or 27. I'm only disappointed that you're going to have retired before then and won't be there for the celebration, but I think you might be on the Brighton City Council, so you might come forward anyway. So thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate your answers.
Thank you. Any other questions from council?
Councilmember Douglas?
Thank you, Mayor Huesman. And it's great to see you again today, Dr. Fiedler. Congratulations on the ribbon cutting and the CTE building. That building is fabulous, and it is just going to serve our community so well. So thank you for all the hard work that went into that, and yeah, you make our community proud by doing that. So thank you so much for that. I did have a question on the the land itself. And you mentioned that Riverdale sits on 60 acres,
Right at 60 acres.
right? And then ours is 48 acres,
Correct.
and you said 38 of it goes to the city, or
I believe 30 plus acres are allotted for city park and open space. I'll let you answer that,
for
Jason.
City Park? So,
So we have 38.6 acres approximately for a future community park based on the zoning.
so will that leftover 10 acres, will that be sufficient to build the school on and
So just historically, when that PUD went into effect, I think it was in 2002,
2007.
2007. And the only high school we built at that time, I believe, was Brighton High School on about 48 acres, right in the middle of the neighborhood. Prairie View's a little bit bigger in terms of their space. We feel like we got Riverdale Ridge right in terms of the space that we've allowed there. And you know, that's not just a high school site. Across the street is Quist Middle School. But again, there are, do the math in my head, 80-ish acres there, but that the city and the school could do some shared use. We see us building a school adjacent to city parks that might have ball fields and competition fields that the school would also use. I think most of you know that cities utilize our schools and our fields for all kinds of youth activities, not just high school sports. In fact, our fields are busier in the summertime probably than they are any other time of year. So again, in partnership, how can we best use the available space? There's a sliver on that spot that isn't like with the northwest corner that's a long ways from where I think we want to have a park or school. But again, I think the next meeting for our team is on Wednesday, and I know that city staff has reached out about planning on where we're going to put that school and be good partners in that endeavor.
fantastic. Well, congratulations again on the CTE.
Thank you.
And, yeah, I'm just so excited about the possibilities, and
I would encourage all of you to come see it. I'll arrange a tour if you missed today. Someone had to be in Boulder today, I understand.
I do apologize for not being able to be there. I did want to be there
No,
for
it's
that.
okay.
but
You're busy.
I do have one question for you. Why? Are you a glutton for punishment or what?
Oh, you talking about council? I have an answer for you.
Councilmember Kim, I'm not going to let you answer.
Okay.
Councilmember Kim.
Well, let's hear that answer. What is that answer? Now I'm curious.
Why would I run for city council after serving as a superintendent for 19 years in my career? Because I've served 42 board members over the course of that career in multiple districts. And invariably, Mayor, they reached over to me and said, thank you, I would never do your job. Thank you so much for doing it. And I always thought to myself, I'm getting paid. You all are giving your time, volunteering your time to serve and govern our community. I feel I owe that back. I really feel that way. And I think I can bring a long history of what I think good governance looks like. I've been on the other end of it. So that's my answer to that.
So a couple of comments and questions, Dr. Fiddler. First and foremost, I know I've been engaging with Mr. Pierce and some of the board members as well, which again, I really appreciate everything you guys done, especially with regards to, you know, since the death of Sol Ashley, you know, and the bullying situation. I know that's a very tough topic to go and take on and try to figure out altogether, especially when we know this is a nationwide issue. I do plan on still continuing engaging in conversations and having that. Totally understand what, after talking to Mr. Pierce as well, as to, you know, we've got to allow 27J to allow to basically work through some of that. There's truly not a some parents, you know, have some trust issues, right? I mean, they know what the board was like before. Same with Adams 14, same thing, right? So, you know, still wanting to have those engagement, those discussions all together, want to really see a partnership grow. And obviously, if there's ways that we can potentially collaborate with Adams 14 as well when it comes to certain topics such as, you know, going back to bullying, the crime, the drug problems in schools and things of that nature. I'd love to have that over time. So it's not done yet. So still got more to do for sure and continue on from there. But appreciate you guys. Thank you. And one last question I have for you is the district accountability meeting for 27J. Do you know when that's supposed to occur?
The next accountability meeting? I
Yes.
don't know, but I'll get it to you.
Okay.
That's one that
I
Will
haven't
and
seen
Brett-
any postings about it, nothing. I was told sometime it's supposed to happen this month or this week, but I haven't seen anything about it. I'd love to just to attend, and I don't know if it, hopefully it's in person versus.
Oh, they're in
via Zoom.
person. I'll have Will reach out and get that information. Brett Manny chairs that for us, so.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Way over time. Any other questions?
Councilmember Douglas.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak again. I just wanted to say to the audience, for the rest of the people who signed up for public comment and have done that in the past, and we haven't been able to respond to you, I just want to apologize for that. And, you know, we were given an opportunity to ask you questions and everything, Dr. Fiedler, but to the rest of the people who come and would love to hear answers and have us ask questions of them, I want to express at least my sincere apology for that. So.
And if I could address that, Councilwoman Douglas, that's my fault. So I was offered the opportunity to be on the agenda, and I decided, no, I'll just come in and speak under public comment, then I'll have 3 minutes to talk. And now I've been here a lot longer anyway, answering questions. I really want to address the high school foresight. We will deliver on that as soon as we work through where it's going to be. I can promise you a 3-year timeline once we know that to be true. And schools are unique. We don't open schools in October or February. We kind of have a hard start in August and when we're going to open new schools. But thank you for the opportunity to be on the agenda. I respectfully declined, as you know.
Councilmember Noble.
Thank you again, really appreciate it. And I too was at the opening of the CTE today, and it is quite spectacular. So for any parents who are concerned about their kids in trailers, head them over to CTE. They will really have a wonderful experience there. Thank you very much.
There still may be kids in trailers. Don't promise they're all out of the mods. I can't make that promise. All right, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Next is going to be Joanna Rosa Sands.
Hi, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. My name is Joanna Rosa Saenz. I do not live in this county, but teach at Adams Middle School, Adams City Middle School. I have been a grassroots community organizer for the past 20 years and have been very involved in the Commerce City community. I am here on behalf of some of the families that are all sitting back here who will be testifying after me. They live at the Wickiup mobile homes, and we're having a lot of issues there. A lot of these parents and families, the families that I teach, are being asked to leave. I had called City Council. I spoke to, I think, the city manager, and they had said that Ward 1 was our district. Unfortunately, I just found out today that it's not part of the district, that it's Henderson. So I'm coming to you to ask if you would be allies to help these families and to help these parents with their mobile home issue. I will go ahead and let them tell their testimony and what's happening. They will be saying this in Spanish, so if you do need translation, let me know so we can provide that for you. I also have an international nonprofit, Joanna Saenz Enterprises, where I empower voices. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and I utilize this in the schools where I'm teaching at and really empowering the voices of these parents. Thank you for your time, and I'm going to allow the families to speak.
Councilmember Noble.
Yes, I'm sorry, ma'am. Ma'am, could you please state the address of this mobile home park for us?
Sure, 6500 East 88th Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Maybe excuse now, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
All right, next up is going to be Maria Calderon.
Francisco Nora. We are in need of Spanish translation for the next public comments.
Yes, sir. I'm ready. Yes, sir. I'm ready. Can you hear me?
We can. And would you
Okay.
just mind letting them know kind of the process that you're going to follow?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Buenas noches y bienvenidos. Si puede, por favor, hablar una o dos oraciones a la vez y yo con gusto le voy a interpretar.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es María Guadalupe Calderón.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Guadalupe Calderón.
Soy de las trailas de WikiApp.
I live at the trailer park of WikiApp.
Yo el problema que tengo con mi título es de que yo por falta de documentos no lo puedo tener a mi nombre.
The problem I have with the title of my home is that because I am undocumented, I cannot have it under my name.
Correction, she is documented. She just does not have it under her name. She's having issues with that because her ex-spouse has, that's under his name. But she is documented. Go ahead.
Un vecino a mí me ayudó, fue en el 2005 cuando yo entré ahí. Y
A neighbor helped me in 2005, which is when I moved there.
en el 2012 terminé de pagar mi traila y hoy como no tengo el título yo a mi nombre, pues me dieron hasta octubre para que me salga de ahí.
On 2012, I finished paying off my trailer, and now they tell me that I have until October to leave my trailer.
No, y pues ahora no sé cómo ponerlo a mi nombre porque me sale un bond, pero ese bond que me sale ya una persona que nos anda ayudando sale a nombre del título ese que yo tengo y mi título tiene el precio de $75 millones.
I don't know how to hang on to my trailer because now they say that there is a bond and the title comes under the name that he was given, and they are telling me that it's worth $75 million.
Y pues voy a pelear hasta donde yo pueda porque pues tengo mis hijos y soy madre soltera y tengo 18 años viviendo en esa traila.
I am going to fight for as long as I can because I have my kids. I have lived there for 18 years, and I'm going to fight for as long as I can.
Es todo, gracias. Ay, por favor, les pido de su ayuda.
That's all I have to say. Thank you. I'm asking for your help, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Next up will be Belen Ringel.
Good evening, Mayor and City Councils. My name is Belen Rangel. I also live in the WikiUp community. I've been living there for about 4 years, and I have 4 kids, and they will go to DuPont, which is in Commerce City. And my dad is the owner of the mobile home, and he's been living there for about 7 or 8 years, and he has never had an issue with any paperwork. Rent receipts under his name, all bills are under his name, and now he's been asked to leave. And he tried to reapply, but he's been having issues like the other people that are here with us. It's a couple of families, and there's more neighbors that weren't able to come with us today. So it's an issue that's been going on for a couple of months, and now Joanna is helping us because we feel that we always have been a good community overall, and now this is happening, and it's not just one family, 2 families. It's so far that we know of, it is at least 5 families. And we are trying to see what can we help, or what can we do about it, actually. We have kids, we have families that are been living there, and their job or their work, it's right across from us, which is the Mile High Flea Market. That's their income, that's how they make a living, and they're older persons. And they're here, and there's some of them are supposed to leave this month, the end of this month. Others are supposed to leave next month. We are required to, we don't have a date yet, but it's the same, it's very similar to the problem that the person that we just hear. We have an issue with the title, with who's under the name is, and we are so glad that Joanne is helping us, and we are trying to do something about it, because we do have students, our kids go to a school that they are in Commerce City. So we're here to see if we could get some type of help or something, because it is a couple of families that we've been there for many, many years. So that's, yeah. Last year, we have an incident. Our neighbor's tree was a really big tree that my dad and the neighbor were asked to the office if they could cut it down. And they just said that if it's not rotten, they can't do anything about it. So the tree last year in July, it fell over on my dad's mobile home, and it messed up the whole, the city came in and they closed our trailer home. And ever since that, we've been having issues. We never, we didn't complain, honestly. But ever since that, we started receiving papers because of that.
Councilmember Noble?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so sorry that you're going through this. Mr. Rogers, could you please clarify? This mobile home park appears to be across the street from the flea market, correct?
Yes.
Is that Commerce City or is it Adams County?
It is unincorporated Adams County, ma'am.
Okay. Have you spoken to Adams County yet about the issue also?
No, not yet.
What are our options here?
Given that they've testified tonight and I've asked Ms. Sines to send me a virtual card, what I can attempt to do is connect them with my counterpart at the county to make them aware of the situation within the mobile home park and then allow them to operate underneath their policies and procedures in being able to address the matter.
Great, because this certainly falls under the category of natural occurring affordability, natural occurring affordable homes, and to see anything happening at a site like this that is forcing people out of their residence is something that I would most certainly oppose. So I'm sorry that you're going through this, and I know that Mr. Rogers, our city manager, is going to follow through
Thank you.
to you and to your other neighbor.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hurst?
Yeah, without all the context, I think I'm not sure exactly how to approach this, but I do know that House Bill 19-1309 was passed, obviously in 2019, and went into enactment in October 1st, 2022, and it addressed significant issues at mobile home parks and gives first right of refusal on property sales to the current mobile home homeowners, and it addresses several other aspects of mobile home parks. And so I think that's something for us to look further into. It was just recently went into effect less than a year ago.
Next up is going to be Sylvia Hernandez.
Sylvia's decided to decline speaking. You can move on with the next. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any others, Mr. Roberts?
Maria Riviera, and then Tomasa Flores.
Maria Riviera?
Maria's going to also decline, and we're going to let Tomasa speak, and she'll be our final speaker. Thank you.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Tomás Hernández Flores. Yo
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Tomás Hernandez Flores.
vengo a pedirles ayuda porque mi esposo está enfermo y mis niñas están pequeñas y me están desalojando de ahí de Wikia, de mi casa, y no tengo a dónde ir.
I am here to ask you for help. My husband is sick. My children are little, and they are trying to throw us out of our home.
Sí, mi señor está muy enfermo y ya nada más tengo hasta el 25 para irme porque dijo nada más esa fecha. Y
My
ya no
husband,
sé. Oh, sorry.
my husband is very sick, and I have until the 25th to leave my home. Proceda, señora.
Sí, yo quisiera que me ayudaran porque pues no tengo a dónde ir con mi familia y tengo 2 nietos chiquitos y estoy muy preocupada.
I am asking you for your help because I have nowhere to go, and I am very worried about the small children, my grandkids.
Nunca he tenido problemas ni con los vecinos, ni con la renta, con nada he tenido problemas.
I have never had problems there. I haven't had problems with the neighbors, with paying the rent or anything of the sort.
Oh, pues la señorita que está encargada en la oficina no se presta para hablar. Ella dijo que no le gustaban las cortinas.
The young lady that is at the office, it doesn't want to talk to anyone. She said that she didn't like the curtains.
Y dijo también que cambiara las escaleras, que tuvieran barrotes. Y luego al bote de la basura se le cayó la tapa y le dije que me trajera uno. Y me lo trajo, pero lo volvió a recoger. Y dijo que ahí no le parecía la basura, que la moviera. Y
She said that she didn't like the steps, the stairwell, because it didn't have a handle, and I told her that the trash can was missing a top, and she brought it, but then she took it away because she said that she didn't like where the trash can was placed.
Y ella es muy delicada, nada le parece. Mis hijas salen con sus bicicletas a hacer ejercicio. Las tenemos adelante del parqueadero de los carros y dice que las muevamos, que ese no es un lugar. Y
She's very sensitive about everything. My daughters go out and ride their bikes to get some exercise, and they park their bikes across from where we park the cars. She said that that's no place for the bikes. Proceda, señora.
sí, yo trabajo sábados y domingos, yo soy la que me encargo de ahí, de las cosas y de la casa y de afuera y de adentro. Y pues he estado bien, ya tengo ahí 12 años y nunca he tenido problemas.
I work Saturdays and Sundays as well, and I am the one who does everything there. I am in charge of everything. I've been there for 12 years, and I have never had a problem.
Sí. Sí, mi señor sufre de azúcar y está ya muy avanzado. Él lo llevamos al diálisis y ya lo operaron, pero no quedó bien y no mira. Y pues allá anda, él dice una cosa y dice otra, ya como que ya él ya no tiene ganas de seguir adelante. Y pues eso me preocupa.
And my husband, he suffers from, he has high sugar. he's a very advanced stage of diabetes. He was operated. He can't. He's on dialysis. He was operated and he can't see. I am very worried. He says, he will say things that don't make sense. I'm very worried.
El 25, me tengo que mover el 25, sí.
On the 25th, I have to move out on the 25th.
Bueno, pues yo quería que a ver si me pueden ayudar y también quería ver la Univisión que me apoye porque no tengo a dónde ir.
I'm here to see if you can help me. I want to reach out to Univision because I have nowhere to go.
And we did already make CBS 4. Univision is the next step. We just are asking now that we know that we are not part of this district, that you become allies and help all of these families whose children I teach, that I know these families, we be a part of this. We need help right now. Thank you.
Councilmember Chacon?
Muchas gracias y disculpen.
Gracias.
Thank you very much, and I am sorry.
Councilmember Chacon?
Thank you. It takes a lot of bravery to come up here and speak and be able to talk about these vulnerabilities. Honestly, as a council, I think we should be concerned or be able to at least offer some sort of resources. This is targeting. This is legitimately how racist targeting does happen over and over in the same spaces. And for us to be able to do something about it, even stand as a council, I would love to help in any way that I can, especially housing. That's what keeps coming up is the issues with affordable housing. So it feels already like this is a retaliation tactic. I'm considering like, why are they being asked to leave so soon? Titles being brought in. I mean, a lot of equity is not being received at all for these communities. And yeah, given the issues with affordable housing and that it's an environmentally racist zone is really concerning. So I really thank you for coming up with your bravery here.
Councilmember Douglas?
Thank you, Mayor Huseman. I would also like to thank you for your courage, for everyone's courage in coming forward. And I have friends who are commissioners for Adams County. If I had my phone tonight, I left it at home, I would be texting them right now to let them know that this is an issue. I know Adams City Middle School really well, so I'm gonna come find you, Joanna. Okay, so thank you for being a great teacher, because that's what great teachers do. I know that 2 of our daughters are teachers, and teachers are pillars of the community, and they're the glue. They're the glue that holds everything together. So thank you for doing what you're doing. Again, I'm not used to responding in citizens communication, but yeah, thanks for doing what you're doing. Let's get this figured out. I can't promise anything except that we're gonna do our best to help. Thank you.
Councilmember Ford?
First of all,
Sorry, Mayor Huseman and council members. After you give your comments, we're going to allow Francisco to step back in and translate your comments so that they can understand.
thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for coming in. I'm sorry about the difficult issues that you're facing right now. And it's unfortunate, it is unincorporated Adams County and not in our jurisdiction. But I do know Adams County has hired some attorneys to help with issues of eviction in the past, and they have them on staff. And through their social service department, there may be some opportunities there. And I don't, I have a lot of questions because I don't know if these residents have been served with eviction notices, with a legal documentation to have to be out, because a lady like this that is in this position, if it's not a formal or a legal obligation to have to be out, I would take what remaining time you have left prior to the notice of being out and reach out to Adams County Social Services to see if there are opportunities for legal representation to keep these people in their home until you have the opportunity to find out why they're being removed or asked to leave. But would absolutely help them in any way that I could to be able to stay within their homes. So thank you again for coming in.
Francisco, would you mind translating that?
Yes. Gracias por venir. Este es un asunto muy difícil, a pesar de que esto se encuentra en el territorio del condado Adams no incorporado y no tenemos jurisdicción. Consideramos que yo sé que el condado Adams en el pasado ha lidiado con esta clase de asuntos y ellos tienen un equipo de abogados y hay algunas oportunidades para ver qué se puede hacer. Formalmente, estas personas se les tiene que haber entregado una notificación de que están siendo desahuciados, que están siendo echados de sus casas y tiene que ser hecho de manera debida y deben de usar el tiempo que les queda para comunicarse con la Oficina de Servicios Sociales y buscar que se le representación legal para ver qué se puede hacer en esta situación. Definitivamente que yo quiero ayudar.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for speaking with us tonight. If follow-up is necessary, you should expect to be contacted by a staff member. Members of the public were able to submit written comments online and by mail. Written comments were not received by the deadline. If anyone wishes to speak at a future council meeting, please check the meeting agenda and the city website for information on how to register or submit written comments. Going to move on to resolutions. We have Resolution 2023-091 for assignment of a CHAFA PAB allocation. Does anybody on council have any questions for staff? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion second to adopt Resolution 2023-091. Councilmember Hurst.
So moved.
I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2023-091. Is there a second? Councilmember Ford.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2023-091. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor Huseman. As you recall, this was part of the consent agenda 2 weeks ago, or I guess it was 3 weeks ago. Oh, wait a minute, am I in the wrong one? I think I am. So we skipped over the presentation and we are on the resolution. 2023-091. Okay, so okay. So, yeah, this is the one that was the private activity bond issue. I have a problem with this just because I really had wished that this would have been presented as an opportunity to the city, this much money coming in. I understand how private activity bonds work, but it would have been nice to at least have the opportunity to see if we could find some kind of partnership so that we could have brought this in as a project. As it stands now, it's going to CHAFA. It may serve our citizens, it may not. If it does, it's probably going to serve very few of them. So in moving forward on the next one, that the next FAB or PAB that's issued, I would really like the council to be notified of the opportunity. When we were presented this a couple of years ago for the developer that wanted to come in, he had already identified the funds and came in and apparently had already talked to the county about annexing and zoning and rezoning, and the plans were obviously already set in place. And that never got presented to the community members that it's going to impact. There's just so much of this that I feel the community needs to know about and be aware of so that we can take advantage of opportunities such as this. And I was kind of not surprised that it was not easy to get a second on this motion. And I'm going back and forth on it, and I wish that there would have been time to make sure that this 3.8, a little over 3.8 million, could have gone to benefit the people of Commerce City, especially knowing that there are needs out here. We have people coming to the podium all the time expressing their needs and the struggles that they're going through. And this just to me is a shame. It's really a shame. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Noble?
Thank you very much. Since you're standing there, I'll ask you directly, just to describe to everyone what these private activity bonds will be doing. And I think to follow up on Councilmember Douglas's point, I guess my question would be, why are we unable to hold on to the money and offer to help lower down payments for home buyers the same way that Chafa does? My concern about it is that Chafa gets the money back, if you will, or gets the money, and then we have to compete for the money and don't necessarily get it back in any fashion. So what is the mechanism that is causing us to go ahead and give it to Chafa and then have to compete for the money if we come up with a program and not take care of first-time home buyers who might be able to utilize the money for a down payment?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Noble. I do want to indicate that I am on the line virtually. Denver Ma, who is the Director of Finance with Chafa, is also here and is willing to speak and try to answer questions, but I will take the initial stab at your question, and then if he wants to add, certainly allow him to do that. So if we do have an identified project like we did last year, even though we assign it to Chafa, they know that it is for a specific project and it will be held for that project. This year, because we didn't have an identified project, it would go into the cap that they have, so they get 50% of the cap plus anybody who has allowed the assignment to go into that pot of money, and then that creates their 2024 budget. They'll go through a budget process and they determine how to use those funds. There are several pieces of criteria. I believe both City Manager Rogers and myself talked last time about the various categories of which the funds could be used, and if a project were identified and they qualified under that, they certainly could submit that application to Chafa for consideration to be approved. If City Council does not assign the allocation to Chafa, which is your right, you do not have to do that, then it would go to the statewide balance and go to a fairly similar process. This way, the funds will be hopefully utilized within our boundary. I provided some information that they gave me about where the funds have gone for the last few years, how many homes, how many loans had been taken out, and how many members within households had received support. So you can see that those funds have been used within this geographical area. So I appreciate that they were able to provide that information. I hope, does that help answer the question?
Yes, and I did read that information. It was interesting. I was concerned that there has been a precipitous drop-off every year for the last 4 years in terms of loans to folks. So what should we be doing differently? Are we not getting the word out to the community that these funds are available to help them with a down payment?
Okay. It does sound like Mr. Ma is ready to address that question, so I'll give him an opportunity to speak as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that question. I'm Denver Ma, the Director of Finance at Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. I believe you're looking at some numbers that we provided as far as what we provided for first-time homebuyers and veterans and those who lived in qualified census tracts. So these are loans that we are able to give leveraging private activity bond cap. The drop, I'm looking at the numbers as well. In 2020, for example, we were able to offer 102 loans, and in then 68 loans, and then 39 loans. The drop really is really due to market conditions. We offer this program to anyone within Colorado without limit. And so it's really driven by the market, and the market really just slowed down over the last few years. So ideally, if the market were to heat back up again, we would be providing that same amount of loans again. That was really just market driven. It wasn't CHFA cutting anything off or anything like that. It's really just a mechanism of the market. I will just note that private activity bond cap is actually in that it is a bond, and therefore it is the right to borrow money at a tax exempt rate. And so it's not actual funds or funding from the government. It is the right to borrow money. And so what CHFA does is we combine that private activity bond, those private activity bonds from Commerce City or any other municipality, along with ours, and then we leverage that to go to the markets, borrow money at a larger scale, which provides better economics to go into that bond market. And then we provide that lending throughout all of Colorado. And so that is a down payment. We provide 4% down payment assistance at 0%, as well as the first mortgage at a lower rate than you would find in the market. And so that is what we are able to leverage with that private activity bond cap.
How is someone, a potential home buyer, how are they to apply for this?
We have 120 current active correspondent lenders. And so what CHFA does, we have a CHFA product, which is it's called the First Step loan for first-time home buyers. And those buyers can go to their bankers or to a mortgage provider and ask for a CHFA product. And hopefully that provider offers a CHFA product. If not, I would say you can move on and find someone else who could offer that CHFA product. But it is a lower cost loan as well as that 0% down payment assistance loan. So it is a very competitive, and I believe it actually provides a great benefit to really all of those in Colorado. I will note that the total numbers of private activity bond cap with Commerce City at $3.8 million. And once again, that's the right to borrow. In 2020, there was $33 million of lending in Commerce City. And in 2022, it did drop precipitously. But as I said, that was really due to market conditions. It was still $15 million of lending within Commerce City. So we make sure that we will invest more than what is a transfer to CHFA. I often use an analogy of the way private activity bond cap is allocated in Colorado. It gives a little bit to each municipality based upon their population. Really, in order to utilize that private activity bond cap in an economic way, it really needs to be a larger sizes. And so when we go to market, for example, for a single family lending, and once again, we borrow money in order to lend money to, and that is how we we really borrow all of our funds. We don't receive funds from the state. We'll borrow $150 million at a time. And so it really makes sense to do these in larger tranches and for the entire state. And that gets us better pricing, better economics. And we are able to go to market with a AAA rating, which also lowers our cost of funds, which then lowers the cost of funds for our borrowers.
Okay, I want to go back to this for just 1 minute, Mr. Ma. I'm so sorry. How does a potential home buyer find out that they are supposed to go to a lender and say that they would like a Chaffa product? I just can't, I'm trying to imagine a first-time home buyer even knowing the terminology that they would carry with them to the lender. How do you let the community know about this product?
Well, we we try to advertise and get the word out. Honestly, it is just getting the word out and people knowing what that is, and also going to the lender. Our mortgage brokers will have various products to provide, and hopefully a Chaffa product is part of that suite. And so I would say, ask for that Chaffa product and see if it's there. If not, maybe we could also go to chaffainfo.com and we'd be able to direct you to affiliate lenders as well.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kim.
Thank you, Mayor. Hey, Mr. Mont, I just want to get back to the understanding of this a little bit more. First off, so when you mentioned a single family wanting to purchase a home, can you walk me through that? What are the requirements that family would need to meet in order to borrow?
So this program is what the IRS calls a qualified buyer, meaning they are a first-time home buyer. They haven't owned a home the last 3 years. They are a veteran or they live within a qualified census tract. Along with that, they would also have to meet the income levels, which would qualify them for whatever size home or the size of the loan that they would ask for. And therefore, they still have to qualify and make sure that obviously income would be able to make payments so a borrower does not get themselves in trouble. But really all that is needed is to be able to really bring $1,000 to the table and show that you are able to make those payments and qualify for that loan. And then you can receive that 4% down payment assistance, which really gets you into that home. And that down payment assistance, as I said, 0%. It is repayable upon refinance or sell of the home. So ideally, the idea is that equity or increase in pricing would basically wash that away after a year or two. But that is repaid to Chaffa. But really, that is all that is needed to qualify for that Chaffa loan.
So going back to the example, it's $1,000 from the family to bring to the table, and then in turn, you guys would help subsidize that to another.
Correct.
What'd you say, another 4%?
We give a second mortgage of 4%.
Second mortgage, 4%.
That's right.
Okay.
It's a 4% of the first, 4% of the par amount. It's a 0% non-amortizing loan.
Non-amortizing loan, okay.
Which means nobody pays it until sell, or no one has to make any debt service on it until the sale of the home. For the second, that 4% down payment assistance loan.
Roger that. And okay. Are there any other alternatives I'm sorry, has there been any other alternatives used to explore other options other than the private activity bond?
For home buyers?
Yeah.
We offer other programs. We offer something we call the Smart Step loan, which is not for first-time home buyers. It also is for any residences of Colorado. That does not use private activity bonds. We use taxable bonds for that, or we sell that in the market as basically mortgage-backed securities. That is also a program, and that is usually about a quarter point higher in rate, just because, as I said, we borrow these funds in order to lend them, and our borrowing costs are higher with those taxable bonds.
One other question too I have is I understand you provide up to, let's say 4%, right, to basically get the homeowner into the home. But then when the home is sold, does it then accrue interest once the home is sold to be paid back to you guys, or to be paid back?
No. So the first mortgage is.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out how is profit made, right, if there is any, from you guys
Yes.
to basically continue being in business.
Yes, and that is correct. We do have a margin between our borrowing cost and our first mortgage cost. And so when we go to market, we'll say borrow money at 6%, and then we will lend that first mortgage at 7%. That difference is what keeps us in business and allows us to function. That second mortgage, however, is also just there is no cost in the repayment. Interest does not start to accrue, but it is due upon resale or refi.
So it sounds like there is then interest that has to be paid after the home is sold. Is that what that's what it sounded like, unless I'm misunderstanding.
No, I'm sorry. So the second mortgage, once the home is sold, the second mortgage would have to be repaid at that sale of the home, because we wouldn't have a second mortgage because the first lien would then go away as well. So if the first lien is sold, then the second mortgage that trails that first mortgage would have to be paid off. So that's all we require the par amount that is lent at the beginning. So if we lend you $4,000 when you resell your home or refi your home, you have to pay Chaffa back that $4,000.
Plus interest, no interest. Without.
No interest, just the corp. That's correct. Interest is earned on the first mortgage. Chaffa does earn a spread on the first mortgage, and that's where we stay in business.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mall.
Councilmember Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor Huseman. So I would assume, I wanted to answer Councilmember Noble's question about people finding out about Chaffa loans. Usually you need to have a real estate professional who is well-versed in affordable housing, and they would know about how to use a lender who is familiar with Chaffa loans. And I'm one of those people. So aren't you probably doing less loans because buyers have to meet certain criteria to qualify, but the market has escalated so drastically that there are no affordable properties out there for people to buy. So wouldn't that impact the number of loans that you're able to do?
Exactly, Councilwoman. That is part of the market issue. Not only did the market, it nearly froze there during COVID with very few homes for sale, but with price appreciation as well, first-time home buyers and being able to get into a home along the Front Range becomes very cost prohibitive. Yeah. And so that is becoming an issue along the Front Range, is that people just aren't able to afford a home within their price range. And so I will say, just since we are Colorado-wide, a lot of we are seeing first-time home buyers, more production, I will say more lending away from the Front Range, because that's where the affordable homes are. Unfortunately. So it's really market driven, and the market is driving that, that first time home buyer price point out of reach for most people.
Right. It could put you out of business, which is unfortunate to say, because we've created this hyper rental market, landlords, and ownership is so difficult for people now, young families who are thinking about the American dream, and it has become the American nightmare. Unfortunately, I really appreciate you coming forward and sharing your expertise on all of this. Thank you.
Happy to do it. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Any other discussion? All right, I have a motion second to adopt resolution 2023-091. Will the clerk please read the title?
Resolution 2023-091, a resolution authorizing assignment to the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority of a private activity bond allocation of the City of Commerce City pursuant to the Colorado Private Activity Bond Ceiling Allocation Act.
I have a motion second to adopt resolution 2023-091. The title has been read. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. One excused absence. We're going to move on to our 2024 City Council Budget Retreat presentation. I will invite Teresa Wilson, Finance Director, forward to give the presentation.
Can you hear me okay? Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Councilors. This evening's Council Budget Retreat is the culmination of staff presentations regarding the 2024 budget. This is also the last opportunity for City Council to provide feedback regarding the City Manager's proposed budget to allow time for staff to finalize the proposed budget for the opening of the public hearing on the budget scheduled for October 16th. Formal presentations on the 2024 budget began back in July with the draft CIP, followed by 3 preliminary sessions covering a variety of topics. That leads us to the agenda for tonight, which includes a CIP recap, financial data recap, revised general fund sources and uses information, a final discussion around 2024 budget requests, a reminder of next steps, and time for questions. With that, Chris Johnson, our city's budget manager, is going to provide the CIP recap.
All right, first off, I want to just thank City Manager Rogers and the council for allowing me to present and go over the capital investment program and everything that went into creating it. This has been a large undertaking. We started back in March, redeveloping the whole process under which the CIP was created. We developed new nomenclature, new policies, and new scoring metrics to help us provide a more encompassing program. It's been a big challenge fitting in all these needed projects while making sure we are living within our means and not depleting CIP-specific revenues for future years. So I'd like to give a thank you to everyone who worked on the CIP process team, as well as a shout out to the Center for Innovation for help facilitating the conversations. When we get to the sources side of the source and use for the CIP program, first off, I want to point an error on the information for you. Right above where it says fund balance 2K for 5.15 million, there should be a transfer from general fund for 1 million. So if you did any freelance accounting and added those up and you came up $1 million short, that is the reason why, and I want to apologize for that error. Listed on the sources, we have all our CIP specific sources on here. We have the HUTF, which is the Highway User Tax Fund, which is a shared tax revenue from the state based on gasoline taxes, registration fees, usage fees, and other vehicle-related taxes. We have both transportation tax and road and bridge tax. Those are both county shared tax revenues we received, with the former being based on property valuation and the latter being based on a sales tax. As well as that, we have Adams County Open Space, which is also a shared county tax based on sales tax that can be used on parks and open space projects. In our transfers in, besides the transfers from 2K and general fund, we have the Solid Waste Fund, which is our tipping fee charged to Republic Services for operating their trucks on city council roads. They have on Commerce City roads. We have the Conservation Trust Fund, which is the state's lottery funds that are disseminated to cities for parks and open space projects. We use some IT retained earnings, which is, for no better nomenclature, it's basically the fund balance from our internal service fund. And then that general fund indirect allocation is part of the 2K allocation. It's a percentage of indirect 2K costs that we transfer to CIP to help fund future projects. On the financial uses side, we have a list of projects broken down by department between PW, Public Works, and Parks, Recreation, and Golf. In this list of projects, there is included all 1A preventative maintenance projects, as well as selected 1B periodic maintenance and 2 capital improvement projects such as Rosemary Street widening and 68th Avenue improvements. In the CIP program, we incorporated 4 major staff recommendations. Number one, we prioritize 1A preventative maintenance projects as a tier 1 tier and funded those above all others. Number 2, we recommended funding for the remaining tier 2 projects, which include that 1B periodic maintenance and capital improvement projects, and scored those and selected those based on the scoring. For 3, we funded several projects, including Buffalo Run Golf Course concrete repairs, Elm Street, and Holly Street improvements based off reallocating closed projects, the funding from closed projects to help wrap those up. And then the final recommendation was transferring $10 million from the Chambers Road project to the 96th Avenue improvement project to completely fund that project. As I do want to note that for the recommendations 1 and 2, you will see in the next slide as part of the five-year plan and in the source and use, but 3 and 4 will not show up in there as those are from already allocated dollars, and the 5-year plan and source to use are both forward-facing documents. Which brings us to the 5-year plan. In this plan, we show some previous amounts as well as the recommendation for 2024 funding as well as the next 4 years. The category of the projects is shown on the far right, and all requested projects have made their way into this plan, but some have been moved to later years so as not to overextend and make sure we can continue to afford the 1A maintenance in future years and provide flexibility to fund other projects in those years. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Teresa to go over the general fund finances.
This slide provides a revised breakdown of our general fund balance. The only figure that has changed on this slide is the amount for 2024 YES budget requests. This amount of $582,033 increased from the previous amount of $216,113. This amount increased following updates made to capture refreshed position budgeting data, revised benefits and insurance data, revised internal service fund allocations, and minor revisions to PRG revenues, which would have been an offset to some of those cost increases. These changes reflect the items we have mentioned were subject to change in previous presentations. As a reminder, it is a best budget practice to use unassigned fund balance on one-time uses only rather than to fund ongoing operations. Fund balance accumulates as a result of better than expected revenue performance and lower than expected expenditure levels. We don't always know how much unassigned fund balance we will have from year to year, and as a result, want to treat this as one-time funding resources. As another reminder, under base budgeting, departments receive a recurring base funding level each year. This base budget is designed to maintain existing service levels. Analysis of historical averages by line item and form-based budget setting. Adjustments are made for contractual increases and anomalies that may change from year to year. Departments submit budget requests for consideration of additional funding needs above the base. This base budget request process allows us to thoughtfully evaluate budget needs from one year to the next. This revenue and expenditure data has been revised to capture changes for the 2024 preliminary budget based on where we are with planning efforts today. The delta between the blue revenue line and the orange expenditure line for 2024 is $5.2 million, and this is a surplus that is detailed on the combined source and use document that you will see in a couple more slides. This slide contains some key budget highlights. Sales and use tax combined is down 1.5% through July of this year compared to cumulatively through July of last year. This compares to being down 1.7% through May and down 1% through June. So this is changing from month to month, and we are continuing to monitor this. Development revenues are also trending down. While on the expenditure side of the budget equation, we have the challenges of increased costs for positions, inflation, and allocations. The bottom of this slide shows historical amounts of general fund balance used to balance the budget in the column on the left compared to the actual change in fund balance based on year-end audited data in the column on the right. The 29 million actual increase in 21 was due to much higher than expected sales and use tax revenue, along with much higher than expected audit revenue received in that year. The corresponding negative change in 22 was due to transferring that surplus revenue to the capital expenditures fund for use on the golf clubhouse expansion and police substation projects. This general fund combined source and use document has also been updated to account for revisions and changes discussed earlier. Small base budget updates were made for contractual adjustments, position budgeting was refreshed, as well as allocations. It has also been revised to show an increased transfer from the Water Acquisition Fund. Historically, this transfer has been $531,000 for the annual principal and interest requirement for the 2017B certificates of participation issuance that financed the purchase of city water beginning in 2017. The Water Acquisition Fund has sufficient fund balance to pay the remaining balance of these COPs off in 2024, rather than continuing to make smaller payments for the duration of the original amortization schedule, which lasts until 2032. So we'd like to pay that off early and have one less COP issuance next year. This is the normal operating general fund non-2K split of the source and use document. When strictly operating sources and operating uses are factored in, we have a surplus of a little over $2 million. This surplus will be used to fund approved budget requests, the transfer to CIP for capital projects, and any additional items council may wish to add. The total amount of the general fund non-2K yes budget requests is $2.6 million. More details regarding potential council adds are included in a few more slides. And this is the 2K split of the source and use document, which shows revenues and expenditures specific to 2K functions, including annual debt service payments for all of the city's revenue bonds. To finalize plans around 2024 budget requests in advance of the public hearing on the 2024 budget beginning next month, we would like to implement staff recommendations to fund the yes items, as well as incorporate additional adds that a majority of council members may wish to include. There was some previous discussion regarding iPads for community development and poll cameras for the police department. These have been discussed internally and will be further addressed with those impacted department directors as final needs in these areas are determined. This slide summarizes fund balance impacts for the yes items, along with potential council adds that have been discussed at previous meetings, and there may be new topics that you wish to discuss tonight. And just for a thorough breakdown, the general fund yes requests in total were $4.5 million to be covered from the following three funding sources: the 2.6 in non-2K general fund resources, 200,000 out of general fund 2K resources, and 1.65 million out of IT retained earnings. The surplus available to cover other items is the little over 2 million that you see at the bottom of that slide. And the corresponding math gets us to that 582,000 of impact of funding the yes items to the general fund balance. So next steps, this list keeps getting shorter as the weeks go by. We have the opening of the public hearing on October 16th of next month. And then the public hearing is continued and closed with the anticipated budget adoption on November 6th. And between now and the start of the public hearing next month, we will be busy incorporating changes for the final proposed 24 budget. We only have about a month to finalize everything, and that month goes by really fast for our budget staff, which is why tonight is the last opportunity for council to provide feedback to be incorporated in time. We will also take a final look at revenue estimates and make any appropriate adjustments as part of that finalization of the budget. And with that, we welcome any additional discussion or questions that council may have.
Thank you for that presentation. Does anybody on council have any questions? Councilmember Noble.
Thank you very much. I had suggested the landscape planning architect and the senior coordinator. In both those cases, it reflects a cumulative impact. Could you describe what the cumulative impact represents?
Absolutely. So the middle column on here, to fund all of the yes items, it would have an impact of requiring $582,033 of fund balance to balance the budget. If we were to add $84,500 for the senior coordinator, we would need a total of $666,533 to balance the budget. Then if we added the $145 for the landscape architect, we would need $811. So essentially, we wanted to provide the individual impact of each of these rows as well as the cumulative. So the cumulative takes the first individual plus the second item for that total and so forth. Does that help answer your question?
Tremendously. That was absolutely not clear.
I'm sorry
That
about
it was
that.
being added from one line to the next line.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
That's okay. I thought, is this over 10 years? What is the cumulative impact?
This is just an example of something that makes sense to finance professionals that may not make sense to non-finance professionals.
Well, perhaps, or it could be read differently if people choose to go with one and not the other.
Absolutely.
It's making an assumption about which are going to be added and in what order. And that
Absolutely.
isn't necessarily the case.
And if we follow this format again next year, we'll try to make that more clear.
That would be helpful. Thank you very much. So the question I have for Mr. Rogers is, we are going to be having a xeriscaping ordinance and a xeriscaping, that will outline what people are supposed to do. We are also endeavoring to do the same at all of our city properties. So who do you see doing this if you don't have a landscape and planning architect? Who did you envision?
Thank you, ma'am. Great question. I think we always anticipated that ultimately we would graduate to an FTE over a period of time as we got our feet underneath ourselves, per se, with how we were going to be able to execute our xeriscaping ordinance and/or changes to how we look at landscaping in today's environment and trends. So what we've done in the past historically doesn't mean that we have to do it today, is we would usually go out and contract for those services so that we could then refine how we would apply that if we brought it in-house. If we're not going to do the contractual services, then obviously you would want to bring in a landscape architect or an arborist that would be able to understand the various genus that you're looking at, from landscaping, what works with xeriscaping, what works with water tolerance, and so forth. So, like I said, typically we would have gone through a contractor that would have had that experience, that we would have been able to call on to review whether it's development review applications or our own applications for installing xeriscaping within our properties. But in this case, at the end of the day, we would have, like I said, we would have graduated to like I said, an arborist that would have been able to serve that role, or a landscape architect.
Yeah, so my concern is this: although the water gets turned off mid-October, there are going to be people who are eager to do this as soon as next spring. There's a lot of interest in moving into this area. And if we have nothing in the budget to cover this, it seems to me that it will be kind of chaotic. Do you have anything in the budget for a contractor?
I'd have to investigate that to see whether or not there is a master service agreement amongst different vendors we have today that provide landscaping services that may be able to provide a short-term solution. If not, we would have to have some budget appropriation direction from council to look at the remainder of this year for us to get into a hiring process so that coming into the first and second quarter of next year, we're not spending that time recruiting for said position.
Right. So it seems to me then doing this now for the 2024 budget would make sense because that would give you winter to be looking for a person and then they would be ready to go. It would also give them the opportunity to weigh in from a professional's point of view about our ordinance.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we don't have that. We don't have a professional landscape person involved in that at this point in time.
Yes,
correct?
ma'am. You are absolutely correct.
Okay, so I still think that's a good idea. And the senior coordinator remains something that the seniors are eager to have to refer them to different services. I mean, this is not to say that we are not happy with the family senior coordinator who's in that role. She's a fabulous human being. It's just that, as we saw tonight, there are families in need that can take equally as much time as the seniors might, and the seniors just require something a little bit different in some cases, a little hand-holding at times to get them through you know, a new computer the family gives them, or a phone, or whatever the case might be. Just small things in strange ways. But nevertheless, I think it could be very helpful, and that is something that the Senior Commission has been asking for the past 4 years. It was interpreted differently, and I think that we have seen since that a need still exists. Thank you.
Councilmember Kim.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Wilson, can you give me the bottom line here as far as if all the items in yes, all the yes items and whatnot have been approved, what remains? What's the bottom dollar that would remain?
We would need to use $1,011,621 of general fund balance to balance the budget.
I see. I'm also thinking about, for example, and maybe Mr. Rogers can answer this question too. I mean, potholes. We got tons of potholes out there in the city, especially in the core part of the city. Kind of wondering where we're at with that project and wondering if that's actually been funded in here to fix those issues. We've also got deteriorated roadways. We've got deteriorated sidewalks. We've got, all these issues that are going down, especially down in the south.
Yes, sir.
And I'm just trying to understand where we're at with that. I know there was a conversation we had, I think, earlier before the summer, talking about fixing certain sidewalks. Where are we at with that? Has there been money been allocated to fix these potholes? Has there been money allocated to to help beautify the core part of the city?
So
Something.
Thanks, sir. Great question. I'll rely on Mr. Poe to provide a more accurate detailing of what we budgeted for our pavement and flat work projects.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the question. Since the city, we weren't asking for any additional traditional CIP projects proposed for '24, we are requesting additional money for the concrete flat work, additional money for our pavement management program, which includes the pothole repairs as well as a mill and overlay, in addition to any other treatments that we deem necessary for pavement improvements. These are increases above and beyond what was budgeted for '23, and we're hoping to use that money in addition for crack repair that we have in some of the areas, mainly in the north part of the city, but we are requesting amounts in above what we requested last year to try to catch up a little bit more on those pavement improvements.
Mr. Poe, if I may, if you don't mind further expounding on that you are also exploring other alternative means and methods to deliver pavement management within that increased budget dollar amount that you also plan on bringing forward to council sometime in the fall?
That's correct. There's different types of treatment that you could use to be able to maintain and sustain your pavement that we have in the city. There's different types of slurry seal, there's microchip seal, there's other types of programs that we're looking at evaluating. We just finished evaluating all the pavement throughout the city to basically put a ranking on it from 0 to 100, with 0 being the worst and 100 being a brand-new pavement section. And we're going through those results now, and we're going to be using that data to establish where we need to put our money. The goal is to keep the good roads good, so they don't get in a condition where they have to be reconstructed, because that costs lots more money than just the money it takes to keep our good roads good. So we're looking at various types of improvements. In my discussions with several contractors in the area, some of the training I've been going to, they're willing to possibly do some pilot projects at limited cost to the city, so we can see how those perform. So we're wanting to expand our toolbox, if you will, with the amount of improvements that we're doing, rather than just doing the mill and overlay that we've been accustomed to doing over the past several years.
When's the last time these potholes been addressed?
We try to address any potholes immediately once we get those complaints, especially if there's a safety issue.
Okay. So, and that's actually in the budget that shows how much extra additional are you looking to obtain for '24?
As far as the pavement management side of things, it basically falls with the asphalt pavement. Traditionally, we have asked $2.5 million. We are asking for $1 million more for '24.
So I guess if this gets approved, I'm expecting then all the roads to be copacetic. We're gonna have no potholes in the city. We're not gonna, my truck is not gonna be jammed around, or cars or people tripping through and breaking ankles.
Well, I will say that things will be drastically improved just in our environment with the amount of freeze thaw and heat. It is a daily undertaking to make sure the roadways are maintained.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Wilson, back to you really quick. You had mentioned that an additional 1 million would be needed if all these items, and where would that come from?
General fund unassigned fund balance.
And, okay, so can you show me exactly where that's at again on the slide, please?
So it would come out of that 31.4 million that you see, the remaining unassigned fund balance. Do you see that row there?
I do.
So we would take $1 million and change of that to balance the budget.
Okay.
And
All right.
as a reminder, historically, the column on the left is what we use to balance the budget, and the column on the right is what happened in actuality. So we have used a reasonable amount of general fund unassigned fund balance in previous years to balance the budget.
Okay, that's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor Huesman. Thank you for the presentation tonight. Could you explain the funding for the police station and the golf clubhouse renovation? It was kind of lumped together, and then it...
Absolutely. And I think it's best explained looking at this slide.
Yeah.
So in 2021, we added $29 million to general fund balance, and decisions were made at the end of that year to utilize that funding on the golf course clubhouse expansion project and to start funding the police substation project. About half of that money was used for each of those projects. And that's not to say that the police substation project is completely funded, but that was a good drop in the bucket for that project. Decisions about that project moving forward are still underway, but we thought it would be a good idea to get that funding started. And those were both approved by council at the time.
So 29 million is a substantial amount. Where did that money come from?
In 2021, we had higher than expected sales and use tax revenues, and that was also a really good audit revenue year. Normally, we budget $3.5 million for audit revenue, and we earned about $12 million in audit revenue that year. It's just what happened that year that led to that higher than expected amount
Okay,
that we
so
added to fund balance.
there was 12 million more earned in, but that leaves 17 million. Where did that money come from?
A lot, primarily it was increased sales and use tax revenue.
Really?
That was just a really good revenue year for us.
Okay, so that wasn't like COVID money that came in that
No.
could have been spent elsewhere? Okay,
Not in that year.
all right.
The CARES Act revenue that we had was in 2020.
Okay, and I appreciate you answering that
Absolutely.
question. And is it like this money split down the middle for those two projects? Why was that lumped together like
Not-
that?
That's just the way that we summarized it on this slide. It was approximately 50-50, but not exact. I think it was about 13 million for the golf clubhouse expansion project, and the rest of it went to the police substation project.
So, Ms. Wilson, what we had was 13.5 for the golf course expansion, and then we had approximately 11.9 to 12.1 for the police substation.
Okay, I'm sorry, would you repeat that 11 point what?
11.9 to 12.1 thereabouts for the Northern Range Police Substation.
Okay.
And then 13.5 for the golf course expansion project.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kim?
One last follow-up, sorry about that, Mayor. So there was a question, so I can't find where exactly it was within the slides. I don't know if it was within the slides. It was regarding, remember that colorful chart that showed, kind of had a breakout as far as what it come to different, whether it was projects or whatever, and it said yes or no next to it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I can't remember which one that was. There was a question, I think it was during the preliminary session one, I think it was. Still trying to find it, but there's something I had asked about, or not asked, but someone had asked me about, was the CALEA accreditation manager? What is that?
That would be that would be within the police department, and if Mr. Guadagnola or Chief Guadagnola come up to further expound, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Thank you for the question. CALEA is the accreditation body that provides accreditation nationwide for law enforcement organizations. It's a commission on accreditation of law enforcement agencies. Approximately 20% of the law enforcement agencies in the country maintain this accreditation, and it's a four-year review process wherein that body looks over your policies and requires the department to submit proofs that you're doing business in a manner that is aligned with those policies, policies that represent industry-leading practices, and they essentially validate that you're running a police department in a way that is aligned with best practices at any given time.
So what does that do as far as having one in-house? Is it just basically everything you just stated, or is there something else that would basically make us better than the rest essentially? Is that what?
I'm sorry, make us better than?
Make us better than the rest of the police departments out there, or what does that mean?
Well, I would certainly say that it is. They're
I
considered.
mean, you
the
guys are
gold
already the
standard.
best, I'm just saying, so. I mean-
Well, I would not disagree with that, but it's one thing for a chief to speak highly of his police department, and it's another to say that this nationwide, this Commission on the Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies that maintains this, it's actually beyond nationwide, it's around the world, that we do business in a manner that aligns with their standards. So it's a validation piece in that regard as well.
Okay, all right, that's all I've got. Thank you very much, sir.
Are there any other questions? Did you have more to present?
No, that was it.
All right.
You guys let me through my presentation before the discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. Councilmember Noble?
I was wondering also, as we do the budget for 2024, that I was growing a bit concerned about our revenue sources and sales and use. And we already saw a drop over the last couple of years. I don't know if that's fewer Amazon shopping because the pandemic's over, or just simply the nature of the market at this time. But in any event, we need to be looking even further into the future. Of course, there is the Infrastructure Act, which is refocusing the nation and communities on alternative energy and renewable energy. And yet, Commerce City's revenues are tied in with fossil fuel industry that may be on the waning end. I don't know how long that will be, but it is something that I think that we need to be thinking about and preparing for. To that end, I would like, would the staff be able to bring back to us the economic impact of the fossil fuel industries in Commerce City on our budget, in particular revenues?
I think that's something that we can definitely research and investigate. I do think that would be longer term than what is needed to adopt the 2024 budget. That process begins next month. I don't disagree with any of the points you're making. And I do believe the city would benefit for some longer term financial planning, which, as you know, I've been filling a number of vacancies this year, and I know that's something that I can work with the city manager's office on and, you know, dedicate some resources to working on that. That wouldn't happen in time for the adoption of the budget this year, though.
All right, thank you very much. I do think it would be critical so that we know how to diversify and when to diversify. So that would be
Absolutely.
great. Thank you very much. And then my second question is, for these two items that I raised, do I need to do a motion on them?
No, ma'am. I think what we've generally received tonight, I mean, we've taken the necessary steps to flip them to a yes. I think the discussion was if the council chose to pull that back, then we would make those adjustments. But with what we've heard tonight, we'll move forward with the the 3 items that you find in addition to the yeses to be included. And then we'll obviously show that impact with the general fund balance when it comes back in October.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much for the presentation. We're going to move on to our consent agenda. The consent agenda includes items that are routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, or non-controversial. These items are presented to council for a single motion and vote. Any member of council may ask to remove a specific item off the consent agenda for further discussion and a separate vote. Tonight, there are 5 items listed under the consent agenda. Does anybody on council wish to remove an item off the consent agenda? Seeing the request to do so, I'm looking for a motion second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Mayor Pro Tem?
So moved.
Councilmember Hurst?
Second.
Have a motion second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Will the clerk please read the titles and take a roll call vote?
Minutes of the August 21st, 2023 meeting. Resolution 2023-103, a resolution authorizing the Second Amendment of an existing intergovernmental agreement by and between the City of Commerce City and the Colorado Department of Transportation for the East 88th Avenue Widening Project. Ordinance Z-988-23, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance and zoning map of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by rezoning the property generally located at 7160 Eudora Drive from medium-intensity industrial I-2 to light-intensity industrial I-1. Ordinance Z-989-24, 23, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance and zoning map of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by rezoning the property located at 8705 Rosemary Street from Light Intensity Industrial District I-1 and Agricultural District AG to Medium Intensity Industrial District I-2. Ordinance 2540, an ordinance amending sections 21-5200 and 21-5249 and 21-11200 of the Land Development Code pertaining to the regulation of medical and recreational marijuana businesses. Your vote is open.
Consent agenda passes unanimously, 8-0 with one excused absence. Going to move on to administrative business per council policy. Except for emergency or unforeseen items, council members are encouraged to submit administrative business items by the Tuesday before the meeting with another council member's endorsement. Do any council members have any administrative business items of an emergency or unforeseen circumstance? Seeing none, we will move on. Councilmember Noble.
I apologize, Mayor. I was pressing the button and I wasn't hitting it.
Councilmember Noble, your microphone.
Sorry, I was apologizing to you, Mayor. There has been another fine against Suncor, this time for around $600,000 for residents in the area to buy EV lawn care equipment. As you recall, Councilmember Chacon and I both met with the EPA, and the EPA offered to come to a council meeting. I would like to get that meeting scheduled and on the books. I think that an EV lawn equipment fine is kind of tone deaf. The residents could certainly use something more than that. So many of them live in multifamily housing and so on. So I am eager to get them booked. Is that possible, Mr. Rogers?
Yes, ma'am. We can reach out to the EPA, let them know of our availability that we have in October and November for a study session to come before you all to have that conversation, unless you all would prefer to have it during a regular meeting. Just need some direction as to when you would like them to come, because obviously there's a different level of participation about the community.
Yeah, I think a regular city council meeting would be best for a presentation. I can make a motion to that effect. Would you like a motion to that effect, Mr. Mayor?
If you would like that to happen, a motion would be appropriate.
Alrighty, thank you very much. The motion is to arrange a presentation, to arrange for EPA Region 8 representatives to attend a city council meeting to discuss Suncor.
Councilmember Chacon.
I second that motion, or, yeah.
I have a motion and a second to direct staff to arrange a meeting for the EPA for the area to come to a study session to brief the city council. Is there any discussion? Seeing no request for discussion, do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0, one excused absence. Is there any other administrative council business needs to be handled? Seeing none, let's move on to reports. Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, sir. The Economic Development Division is pleased to welcome Mr. Stuart Meek to our team. He is our new Economic Development Local Business Manager, which will serve as a dedicated point of contact with developers and business owners to facilitate and provide concierge services throughout the development review permit process for economic development projects. He will also serve in the capacity of building and maintaining a successful business retention and expansion program. So he joined us last Monday. So welcome, Mr. Meek, to the team. Looking forward to working with you on hopefully some successful projects in the future. With respect to being Public Works, BNSF and UPPR, excuse me, have agreed to come before City Council. BNSF is willing to meet in person. However, UPPR is only available to meet via Zoom. And they are willing to come before council in that hybrid format on October 23rd. So we have that on the schedule, 23rd. As you heard earlier from CDOT about the I-270 project, there has been coordination amongst the Public Works team with respect to I-270 interim bridge improvements to obviously think about how the project could involve improvements to bridges along the corridor to extend the life until they can be fully replaced. The project is planned to begin September 29th and be completed by the end of December. Work will take place at night on the weekends and weekdays. One lane of traffic will be closed during working hours, causing delays to traffic. Staff is working with local businesses so that they can plan accordingly. CDOT and the city will also be coordinating notification out to the public about this project as we start to get into the end of the month. With PRG, Second Creek Trail, I know that's been a hot topic within our communities within the Northern Range. As we have shared publicly that there was a plan on being able to reopen our various trail connections that affected both just general use and obviously access to various schools. There was some signage confusion in regards to whether certain trail sections were actually passable and open for the community. We have communicated and coordinated with Metro Water, to which they are updating signage along the trail to note that it is open. However, be cautious that there is still some construction activity occurring as they continue to make and work through the project. But if you have residents that run into any true closures, we understand, like I said, that those were supposed to be coming down or those were open. If not, please have them reach out to our PRG staff that oversees trails, or they can also connect with myself and my team, and we'll make sure that we get it pushed down to the right level. With PD, we're going to be doing something new this year. It's called Costumes with Cops. That's going to be held on October 21st from 9 to noon or until we run out of costumes. And the intent here, and it's a first of a kind of event here in Commerce City, is that children who do not have the ability to have costumes for Halloween will be able to come to the Civic Center and pick out a Halloween costume with one of our officers, and at all costumes will either be new or gently used, donated, or purchased with donated funds, and free to the kids who attend. So I'd like to give some kudos to our PD for coming up with an event to be able to connect into our community and something that we hope to be able to grow over the coming years. As it relates to parking and traffic, we always know that that's something that we know is a point of community concern. Just this past month, CCPD wrote 102 parking tickets and 170 traffic tickets just in the month of August. And we will continue to keep pushing on that. And then lastly, just want to welcome Officer Abdullah. He is our new lateral officer, and he is an experienced K-9 handler from Adams County Sheriff's Office that started with us last week but was sworn in by the mayor today. Once again, welcome to the team. From a community relations perspective, we are doing our Hispanic Heritage Month event on September 30th. Our team was out there on Friday starting to do the pre-planning and setup for that event, which will be out at the Derby, out in Derby at the Derby Diamond at 72nd and Monaco. This will be a proud partnership with Cultivando and our Commerce City Cultural Council to host this celebration of Hispanic heritage Saturday, September 30th from noon to 4 p.m. There will be a stage that will feature live music, dance performances, food from local restaurants, vendors, and booths from various local businesses and organizations, and more. There will be more additional details to come in the coming weeks, but obviously another exciting new event that we want to bring back to Derby, and looking forward to that. Last but not least, I will be traveling September 30th through October 4th to the International City County Management Association Conference in Austin, Texas. This presents an opportunity for us here at the city to learn new tools and techniques presented by experts as it relates to effective management and growth of an organization while experiencing new trends. products and services that may support continuous improvement of our operations and so forth. Additionally, Commerce City will be spotlighted throughout the conference for its approach to innovative and effective operations. So kudos to the team and everybody behind me for that level of recognition by our peers and obviously municipalities, not just from the US, but across the world that will be visiting in August during this time period. And then lastly, I will be off on Friday, September 22nd, 2023. So my colleague in crime, Kathy, will be serving as the acting city manager. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that information. Does anybody on council have any questions for Mr. Rogers concerning his report? Councilmember Kim.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few questions, Mr. Rogers. First and foremost, I'm looking at the work schedule as well and trying to determine where is Ordinance 2541? When will that be reported with regards to the affordable housing regulation?
Thank you, sir. That is a great question, and I will ask my colleague, Ms. Geiger, to tag in on this as well. We're currently still making revisions to that ordinance. As it currently stands, we are anticipating that the ordinance will come back before City Council on October 9th. Ms. Geiger may have additional details to share with you as she and her team continues to work through that ordinance.
That pretty much sums it up, Councilmember Kim. We're working on some revisions and working through some additional questions that came up in light of the amendments that council moved on the last time we discussed it on first reading. So hopefully by the 9th, it'll be back before you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Geiger. Other question I have is where are we at with hiring a new economic developer? Are we hiring a new ED?
Yes, sir. That recruitment is underway, and we are waiting to have an adequate pool for us to be able to go through our evaluation.
Okay. And then the last one is a few weeks or months ago, it's all starting to combine together. I had requested to see if we could get Suncor out here to actually provide a status update as to what they were doing, understanding we have all these wonderful, quote unquote, wonderful challenges that we currently have with the fines being done and whatnot. But I'm just wondering, does Suncor have they reached out to you to determine if they're willing to come forward before City Council?
We have had conversations with respect to scheduling a point in time. And I think when we first had this discussion, I think the thing for Suncor to be able to understand and want to appreciate from the council is what expectations do you have as part of that? Is this an open discussion to determine how to partner and how to move certain community benefit or investments forward? Is it also to understand how they can try to address or to work through some of the concerns and issues that you all may have of operations? So I think for them to, fully appreciate on how their next steps may be in coming before City Council, I think they have a desire to better understand what council's desires are as an outcome from this joint conversation.
So I could have swore we talked about that already before as far as what the desired outcome would be. Do you not remember us talking about that?
I don't think, well, and I can only speak so much, but I don't know if the expectations that may have been communicated were sufficient enough for them to have a true appreciation, understanding that the conversation held here or depending on the appropriate location where that might ever be is going to, once again, be an open dialogue across the table between the council and between the leadership at Suncor. So I think there's still a desire to better understand what are we jointly, as I've understood it from them, on how we're going to move whatever those discussions are forward.
Kind of disappointing. I just think that, I think with the fact that we do have issues across the South altogether, even just going down and you can smell it in the air. I mean, it's, I hate to say it. I mean, it's, I do want to try to be better partners, but at the same time, with the fact of, with everything else going on, with the fines, that just seems very minimal, in my opinion, with all the issues going on, with the fact that we still have dirty air down in the south region, the fact that our water is somewhat polluted, I'll just say somewhat, the fact that we've got residents with issues, the fact that we've got, there's, I don't know, there's a myriad of things that's out there that needs to be addressed. And honestly, to have it in a public forum, to allow residents to speak their piece, not yell, but speak their piece as to the issues that they are currently facing. And to me, it just seems it's kind of disappointing that they haven't, I guess they're still trying to figure out what exactly we're looking for at this point. That's all I've got.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Rogers, I was just curious too, like you mentioned the celebration for the Hispanic Month at Derby, but with the increase of increased population of homeless at the Derby area, is there a plan in place to get the area cleaned up before the celebration and after the celebration? Because it's an ongoing concern for a lot of the residents, and I'm just wondering, is there a plan in place, or what's the moving forward?
Yes, ma'am. Great question. Yes. So as part of this also pre-visit that occurred on Friday, we ensured to we made sure to have our community well-being team. We also had PD representatives from our public works department on how we were going to take certain steps in, I would call it, improving the area in lead up to the event on September 30th. We do have a plan that is currently under execution amongst those various departments for Derby. We are also planning on having a conversation about additional measures that we plan to take through the remainder of this year after that event that will help to improve what I would just call the accessibility to Derby at all different times of the day, and obviously across weekdays and weekends. Partly what we also will be exploring is conducting a meeting with the business owners so that we can dovetail them into the discussions as part of this planning and execution, implementation and enforcement, and making sure that we have their support in some of these activities. I will say we have experienced some dynamism with enforcement as we have property owners that have been supportive of our homeless population by providing odd ends and jobs, which makes it difficult to enforce. While there are other property owners that have taken a very different position in which they have called for PD to come out and to issue trespass notices. So enforcement fluctuates, ebbs and flows. So being able to have a meeting with the business owners will allow for us to kind of come to some level of understanding on how we can apply and how we can work collaboratively, both public and privately, and then thinking about that continued execution of that plan over the course of the coming months to the end of the year, and then obviously lead up to next year. In addition to some other efforts that, like I said, we'll be bringing forward to you all here in the near future. So that's what I can share with you at this moment, ma'am.
Because I'm also curious about the upkeep, the poor upkeep as well, not just the homeless, but then there's also, like before the celebration, is there any bids in to repair the really broken up masonry brickwork, the brickwork in the center of the road? I mean, the upkeep in general also is very poor in my opinion.
Yes, ma'am. So the upkeep of the bricks within the Derby Diamond, that's a much longer term project, just given the disrepair and the amount of work that will be necessary to address that. And we're looking at that more holistically, of just not the bricks, but also the low seating walls that you find with the landscaping in and around. How do we reimagine that to be something that is attractive, but also engaging with the community that visits Derby? And that's a process that we don't want to necessarily rush. But in the meantime, we do intend to put down some level of base or other material that will help level that that brickwork out so that it doesn't cause any various tripping harms or other issues that may occur with individuals that are walking through that area or driving through that area. So that has also been thought about as well and will be in place before the event on the 30th.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Chacon.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to follow up on a couple points that other council members brought up. The first one was what Councilmember Kim, I think we have an accountability, especially now that the EPA is looking so hard at Suncor, and there already has been 2 fines issued on their behalf for communities, for us, honestly, for our community, to hold some type of public platform for a community to respond, especially for Spanish-speaking communities. We've done town halls already around the community, but specifically targeting in and around those areas that have been impacted by Suncor. As we've mentioned so many times, it's been a multi-generational issue. And the fact that EPA is now taking Suncor seriously to this degree, they're a known bad actor. With or without Suncor, we should still be holding some level of a social or public platform that community can come to as a city to voice those concerns, or at the least have them on record and continuously have them on record because of how long of a bad actor that they've been. So I kind of want to second some type of way that we can hold some type of platform that can be continuous for community to know that we're listening and we care. I think that goes a long way, especially right now, knowing the environmental concerns and the current climate impacts. And then another point that Mayor Pro Tem brought up, is there any form of a mental health mobile center that can help houseless relatives? I feel that it's going to worsen, especially fall and winter. We already know that there's a lot more moving into that space and being mindful about how we can approach it with law enforcement, of course, but also with other forms of resources that can help those communities today or in a different way that they might need those type of direct services.
Sorry. As it relates to a continuous platform for communication, dialogue with our community, allow me to explore that with my team with respect to that matter. Just have to do the legwork on that. Sorry, got a little bit heavy on the mic. As it relates to your latter item, ma'am, I can't say that I necessarily have seen in our market a mobile service provided for mental health. Not to say that it doesn't exist. That's another item that we would just simply have to dig in with our community well-being team to see, given that they are out there in the field, they are coordinating and talking with their peers and other municipalities to see what they're doing to address mental health. I will say, as we've talked with, as I've talked with my peers in other cities, mental health is probably one of the bigger ones or bigger issues that comes up when dealing with unhoused populations. That being said, they are taking certain steps to hire those individuals onto actual staff that are going out into the community, whether it's with the community well-being team or community response team, or going out with PD to be able to do some initial assessment and see where it's best to try to find those services or that help. So we can do some due diligence and be able to get back to you all as to what exists in our community, in the Denver Front Range, and see whether or not that's something we can tie into our conversation about the ARPA results that'll be back before you all on September 25th on the agenda.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm hoping that if the EPA does come to visit City Council in that way, that we can at least hold that platform for community constituency to also be able to connect with the EPA, or at least to come and voice on record their concerns or what has been their concerns in and around Suncor.
Councilmember Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor Huseman. I'm glad that you mentioned that we're going to be discussing the findings of the survey. I think that's great, and I think we should probably make that known to the community that that's going to be on the agenda, because it's obviously something that is a major concern especially to our residents here in the South who may be struggling themselves, but then also having to contend with the epidemic that's going on of homelessness, but the actions and behavior of the people who are finding themselves homeless are also having an impact on our residents. So I would like to make sure that people that live here are well aware that we're going to be having that discussion, and it's going to be coming before council. I'd also like to suggest listening sessions like we did for the metro districts after those findings are presented, so that we can actually engage with our citizens so that they can talk to us and let them express how they've been impacted and share that with us, and share it with other members of the community. I thought the listening session on the metro districts was quite impactful, and I think it should be an ongoing topic with all of these major issues. I'd like to see the same thing happen with Suncor. They're a $45 billion a year company. And I believe that's in profits. I just read that, and I wish I would have taken note where I read it. But to offer electric lawn equipment as a compensation to me is an insult. To be fined the drop in the bucket amounts that they've been fined is an insult to this community. We were here first. They came in, and we're supposed to be good neighbors. I don't know how a refinery could be looked at as a good neighbor, but they're here. But we need to hold them accountable, and it needs to be a face-to-face where they can actually hear from our people who live here, who live with the impacts on a daily basis, to hear directly from those people, because otherwise they can be in their own privileged bubble and not ever have to face the reality of what's happening. I don't think we should insulate them anymore. I don't think that, I think they need to come forward and to actually hear the stories that I hear constantly. And I can't do anything about it because I don't work for Suncor, but they do. And that's how they make their livelihood. Maybe that's why they want to live in a bubble, so that they don't have to face reality. But the fact is, our citizens live with it. And it's time that that reality comes into play in knowing that that's how they make their livelihood, but what it's doing to the people who live here. So that would be my suggestions. I just really liked the fact that we did that listening session for Metro Districts. It's not the end of it. I think we should continue on with it until we find some real solutions to some of these issues that our people who live here are facing. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Rogers concerning his report? Seeing none, we'll move on to Interim City Attorney Geiger.
I don't have anything specific for you all, but just because it is September 11th, I was in New York City on September 11th, 2001. I did watch those towers fall, and sitting here today, I still can't believe it was 22 years ago. But that's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Does anybody on council have any questions for our interim city attorney? Seeing none, we'll move on to council members wishing to make a report. Please remember, per council policy number 16, to limit your comments to 5 minutes. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let everyone know first, just to, like everyone's doing tonight, remember what, the ones that lost loved ones, in the incident in New York, and just take time to reflect on that. And last, just had a nice time this past Saturday walking in the Adams City High School homecoming parade. It was nice to see the unity of the students and the parents, participation and friends. So just wanted to say that, and everyone have a good night.
Councilmember Noble.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that, Sarah. I don't think any of us can ever forget what we were doing at that moment, but to be in New York is a whole other story, so thank you. I had a very busy couple of weeks. I attended Carolyn Keith's retirement party. As noted earlier this evening, I had coffee with Terry Lucero, the operations director for 27J. I participated in the senior needs assessment with consultants. Also met with the growing Water Smart team, and I might suggest talking to Jenna Hahn about the possibility of the $10,000 application going towards assistance with our plan. I think that was something that we discussed during that meeting. I also attended the Parks, Recreation, and Golf Master Plan session at Bison Ridge. That was very interesting. Those consultants are doing a very good job. The CUP Partnership Dinner. CUP, of course, operates Reunion Coffee House and the soon-to-open Greyhound Grounds at Greyhound Park. And I participated in the boards and commissions meeting tonight. And one final thing for the council. I attended the Bridge Summit. It was held at Adams County offices. And there were cities represented that are in Adams County, as well as nonprofits. And I don't know what the intention of that was. It was a bit like speed dating. You move from one table to another table to another table. You had 15 minutes at each table. And I left the event not knowing what North Glen is doing about homelessness, what Federal Heights is doing about homelessness, what Thornton is doing about homelessness. I thought that was the whole point, was for the cities to sit down together. And somehow it was about meeting nonprofits, I don't know, it was very confusing. So what I would like to ask also, when you are bringing back the survey results, would it be possible for staff to reach out peer-to-peer and ask each of these cities in Adams County what they are actually doing? Because otherwise, how do we know what the gaps are? And it's my understanding that that hasn't even been a topic of conversation at the monthly meetings that Adams County convenes. I learned that from our well-being director.
We can ask the question, ma'am, and see what we're able to get in time for the 25th.
Okay, and if you run into problems by the 20th, will you tell me and I'll do it?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other council members wish to make a report? Councilmember Douglas?
Thank you. So I would like to concur with Councilmember Noble, because I attended that Bridge Summit as well. And yeah, I have no idea what they were trying to accomplish. I know that North Glen is leading the way, but what I could say is that their homelessness issue is different than ours, where they have more families that are couch surfing, and so they're working with the school district on that. It was interesting when I brought up the fact that I saw the pallet home sites in Tacoma, Washington, and the tent cities in Tacoma, Washington, and there were still homeless people camped out under bridges all over the streets. I really don't know what the answer to this homelessness issue is, but it is completely out of control, and it is an epidemic. It's an emergency, and it is everywhere. And I don't see that anyone, especially after seeing what I saw in Tacoma, Washington, is knowing how to resolve this. And it's getting worse, worse and worse by the day. We've got to figure something out. We can be part of the solution, but we can't be expected to take this on as a burden that other cities don't want to deal with. So I think we need to get ahead of the game on it. I also went to the parade on Saturday, participated in it. The kids from Adams 14, I've never seen so much joy in my life. There were more people in the parade than there were watching it, but those kids from each of those schools, they were having the time of their lives. They decorated their floats, they had mascots, they decorated their bikes, and it was really nice to see that as a change, because I've watched the kids from Adams 14 go through a lot in the last 10 years. And to see that burden of knowing that they're out of turnaround and they're succeeding, and they don't have to worry about their school, their only high school being taken away. I saw it. It's a definite change in the climate there. So that was wonderful to participate in. And yeah, I wish I had a better report on that Bridge Summit meeting, but I don't. But it's something that we're going to have to be a part of and figure out what our place is in everything. I've also been going to the Denver mayor's town halls. Same thing. It's I don't know what the solution is, and they don't either, that's for sure.
Councilmember Kim.
Ready, Ms. Rios? Go. So on, where'd it go? God bless, here it is. All right, so I went to have the Youth Commission on Thursday, and it ties into the, so with Youth Commission, we talked about was Deputy Vasquez actually showed up to discuss about the Explorer program that's been going on for ages between 14 and 21 years of age. Great opportunity for kids essentially to learn basic police department academy stuff, learning leadership, writing reports, firearms, driving with, of course, some supervision, and to learn basically about PD and Hall with regards to everything that PD does, not just patrol. They also went into, Miss Penbrook, I believe her name is, from Barry Dunn, came and talked about the PRG master plan. A few things that I will echo back that I think that we need to start looking at as far as that they had mentioned that the teens would definitely want to see is partnerships with schools, maybe providing discounts with schools, certain schools, schools that are in the South or even in the North to be provided a discount to attend, to jump into Eagle Point or Bison Ridge. They mentioned there's lack of outdoor activities. For example, lack of outdoor activities at Eagle Point, such as there's horseback riding apparently event at Bison Ridge that's happening, but then you talk about public transportation to go from Eagle Point to Bison Ridge. We don't have that. So something to explore, maybe within PRG to maybe look at to have a vehicle of some sort to allow to, maybe runs on the hour, every 2 hours, whatever the case is. Hey, we're gonna go from Eagle Point to Bison Ridge and vice versa, if there is something there, because obviously some of these kids have there's no place to really do anything around the city for the kids, and to actually provide that opportunity, that would be great. The other thing too is, and this is the part I'm not 100% sure on, intentional rolling blackouts in the south. I don't know if that's an actual thing. I would probably implore the city manager to look into that a little bit more. Obviously, you and I could have a conversation about that more if you'd like. And with the PRG master plan, obviously they want to have a little bit more inputs coming from more of the youth of the city, and those that are parents that live here with kids. Following into Friday, had the meeting with Ms. Pembroke, and I echo those same sentiments that the Youth Commission said. I will not go to a park, but I will go sometimes. But I think at the end of the day, this is about the kids. This is about parents who have little ones to basically, what do they want to see in the next 20 years or so. Had a code enforcement ride-along with Ernesto. I will just say this. It was a great ride-along altogether, but I will question the fact of wondering, how can we fine residents when we can't even maintain our own? Just gonna leave it at that. On Saturday, same with Councilwoman Douglason, Mayor Pro Tem, attended the Adams City High School homecoming event, walked around, passed out tons of candy to everybody, and then that night attended the Cup Gala with Councilwoman Noble and the mayor as well. It's a great event overall. And as far as this day is concerned, it is special to me. There are people that I've known, people that I've known through family and through friends. The names are Army Private First Class Joel Pertain, Air Force Major Phil Ambard, Air Force A1C Liz Jacobson, Air Force Senior Airman Michael Snyder, Air Force Senior Airman Chris Mansfield, Army Sergeant Major Tim Bolliard, Marine Lance Corporal Roger Deeds, Navy Petty Officer Danny Dietz, and Marine Sergeant Jimmy Spivey. Those are folks that will never be forgotten. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Councilmember Chacon?
Thank you for that, Councilmember Kim. I wanted to report that on Thursday, I went to the Rocky Mountain National, or NAACP, Women in Pioneering EJ event. I was the keynote speaker, and it was such an honor to see so many communities honored there in that space. It was an award ceremony as well, and a panel. One thing that I've been getting a lot from youth, honestly, for the past month, both in my work, both in the Indigenous community, and overall in EJ, and this has been a prevailing message even with youth that don't know each other, is suicidal ideations, mental health support needs, because this is a quote from youth at age 13. They are seeing the world burning, and they're feeling that there's nothing that they can do about it right now. As a parent and a community member, even for council, as a mother, I'm really concerned about how I'm seeing youth suffer from mental health conditions. I know that it is a concern. Environmental justice is not just the physical. It really is very much the very quality of our youth's lives. So just being mindful about how we are approaching environmental justice in Commerce City, how we're approaching not just our youth, but our elders' mental health as well too, is going to be key to their representation, especially going forward. So I just really wanted to highlight that. I feel like other council members are seeing it as well, especially if you're working with youth and elders. And how we can support that as a city is honestly gonna be the true representation of our authentic integrity too. So I just wanted to highlight that. It was a really great event. I'm sorry I wasn't able to go to the Adams County parade. It sounded amazing. I heard really great feedback from a lot of youth, and yeah, that there was more people walking in it than in it. And to tell you the truth, I think that actually sounds great. Just hearing the last month, what I've been hearing, to see that many youth want to see so much joy and have that joy. So I just wanted to report that. Thank you.
Any other council members wish to make a report? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Hurst,
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Have a motion second to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Seeing no request for discussion, do a voice vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned.